Hey everyone, we're going to give this a second to get started on various platforms. Welcome. My name's Dan Ray, and I am with Directions Training, and this is a Microsoft 700 exam prep session for folks on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook Live. We're on Twitter. We're over on Twitch, if you're a Twitch user, and I'm also on my TechThursday channel on YouTube. And the URL for my YouTube channel we'll share here. In our presentation, which is being brought to you by Microsoft Whiteboard today. That is aka.ms/TechThursday. That'll redirect you to my YouTube channel. Let's try this magic trick here in Whiteboard, where we take my text and let's see if we can convert it to something you can read here. We're going to go with the regular camera and our screen share here. Of our slide. Let's get the whiteboard up and running again. Had an issue with OBS because I have not allowed the whiteboard to the permission to change my text into handwriting. So I'm going to have to go to the connected service to do so. Worst case, I will just use PowerPoint and we'll write on the slides. How about that? Let's see if that works. There we go. And you get translation because I have that turned on in my PowerPoint. Microsoft has a set of guidance for the MS 700 exam that you can download. So if you search for Microsoft MS 700 exam, you will find a page to both register for the exam as well as download the skills measured for this exam. And I would strongly suggest you start there because this particular exam has been updated. Let's get the date here that it's been updated for May 25th, 2021. So as of that date, the skills measured have been updated for you. And I'm going to see if this works in Restream, because I believe it does. I'm going to make my mouse gigantic so that you can see where I'm pointing on the screen. So right here, we have download exam skills outline. And the benefit to this outline is, as we look at the different sections that you need to have some experience and some comfort level with, you have an opportunity to prioritize your learning based on the amount that you will be asked about these skills. So this first section is 50% of what you need to know for the exam. And then the remainder resides in two other categories. And those other categories are manage chat calling and meetings, 30 to 35%. And then managing Teams, apps, and policies, 20 to 25%. So if I were to prioritize my learning, I would look at the section with the largest amount of questions on the exam. The first section is hopefully something that will be temporary for many people, at least in the online, Skype for Business online. But remember, Skype for Business is not only an online offering from Microsoft, but also an on-premises offering from Microsoft. So some companies may find themselves further along with the migration to Microsoft Teams, and others may be using Skype for Business and planning the migration to Microsoft Teams. This section has you look at the coexistence modes for Teams. It has you plan and troubleshoot your meeting migration. There's a meeting migration service that you can run to take Skype for Business meetings and migrate those to Teams meetings. You'll also take a look at configuring the Teams upgrade notification and meeting app preferences. So what happens from a standpoint of notifying people that Teams is available. And then coexistence mode, either for your organization or per user. There is also a Teams advisor that you can leverage to look at your planning for Microsoft Teams rollout. The next section is looking at network settings for Microsoft Teams. And as part of the class this week, we took a look at a utility that allows you to run a network test here, network assessment tool servicing. And it's actually the testing client that I want to invoke here. And this tool lets you test the Windows operating system, your internet connection, your Skype and Teams certified devices. I do not have one connected to this system at this point, but I do have over here in my pile of devices a headset from EPOS, Sennheiser, that is Teams certified. So this device has a Teams button on it and can be worn around your neck, and then has earbuds. And if those fall for any reason, they're held by this band that you have around your neck. So I can use this network connectivity and quality test to take a look at my round trip from Microsoft's network to my network, testing the connectivity and the quality of that connection. So you'll have tools like this at your disposal. You'll also be able to run network and bandwidth capacity within the Teams admin center. And I also came across this link, connectivity.office.com, which can automatically detect your location and do some other tests on your connectivity to the Microsoft Cloud. So we have those tools at our disposal when we look at the network testing companion features, planning for quality of service within Teams, and even reporting labels, emergency addresses, the topology, the ports that you need open. That's a whole section within that 50%. Another section that you'll look at is the governance and lifecycle management of Microsoft Teams. So in the MS700 course, which is 4 days, and I am on the 4th day delivering that, had students that had interest in preparation for the exam. We went through this as part of the course, and I made this outline, this PDF, available to those students. So one of the things you can look at there is templates and template policies within the Teams Admin Center. You have the ability to set up policies on the Microsoft 365 group creation. Behind the scenes in Teams, you are leveraging SharePoint. So SharePoint and OneDrive are underlying technologies. Teams also leverages Microsoft 365 groups. So there's a Microsoft 365 group that is created. And there are also aspects in the solution of Exchange Online. That just took me all the way down my document, which I wasn't planning to do. So you've got all 3 of these as part of what you're looking at. And the Microsoft 365 group creation is part of what is created when you put in a Microsoft Teams team. So as I actually create a team, I have a OneNote that's spun up in the background. I have all sorts of other use, like Stream for video streaming. And that Microsoft 365 group is either the starting point of a team or it's created along with the Microsoft team. We also have the ability to take a look at the group's expiration policy and naming policy. You can control that as an admin. So in the course, you have access to the administrative council, and you are a Office 365 or Microsoft 365, depending on when you learned the term, administrator, global administrator. So you have access to everything. You can get into Exchange Online, SharePoint, OneDrive. You can get into Teams as an admin. And then you can also define the other Teams administrator roles for users in a demo tenant that you are given as an individual student. So each individual student works through labs as a global administrator of Microsoft 365. So you can implement things like an expiration policy, naming policy, learn about all these things. You also have the ability to archive, unarchive, delete, restore, both from an end user experience and the administrative experience in Teams. And then finally, in that section, you look at configuring and upgrading your update policies for Teams. One of the things that I strongly encouraged students to think about within their prep, either for the exam or even for situations where they might need to produce documentation, is to leverage the steps recorder, which is part of the Windows operating system. So I'm going to zoom in on this, and it's just called Steps Recorder. All you have to do is click on your start, type in Steps Recorder, and you should find this little utility. And the nice thing about this utility is whatever I click on, so if I click around on this document a couple times, and if I have multiple monitors, this steps recorder documents everything on those multiple monitors and gives me a low-res version, as well as I can click to a high-res version of both monitors, what's going on both monitors. So you can see over here, I have my Restream video being captured, so I can see what's going on in our stream real time. And then I also have the objectives here. If I were in the administrative center, this file would be capturing the different areas of the actual Teams administrator, and I could review those. The next section is security and compliance in Teams. So you'll look at the different admin roles that you can assign and the functionality of those. You have a skill pipe access to the book as well, or your documentation for Teams. So besides instructor-led labs and labs that you can complete on your own, you also have hundreds of pages of documentation that you can work through in learning about these different concepts. So it'll be hands-on as well as documentation that you can refer back to. You'll create compliance features and look at retention policies as part of the class. You'll look at security compliance and alerts from Microsoft Teams, and you'll learn about creating information barrier policies. This is the concept of having different groups within your company that should not be communicating amongst each other. So maybe I have government groups and others that shouldn't be communicating, or I have people working on trade or finance or other areas that need to be separated from other divisions or groups within my company. You can set up information barrier policies. And then there are security reports that you learn about for Microsoft Teams. Next, you learn about endpoints for Microsoft Teams. And although this sounds like something that might be really easy to understand, we delve into the Windows client and the browsers that are supported. We look at VDI or virtual desktop infrastructures, and some of the differences or nuances that you might encounter there. Windows Virtual Desktop, WVD, is a Microsoft offering of a virtual desktop. And we look at the Mac OS client specifically, and Safari, if I can spell here, let's see if I can, Safari. And the fact that Safari is in preview support for Teams. In Safari version 14, which is in Big Sur, the latest version of Mac OS, as well as Catalina, and previous, I believe Mojave was before that, if I have my versions straight. You have to enable cross-site scripting at this point to get Teams working. The other option is to just leverage Chrome, or I believe the Microsoft Edge browser for Mac OS works as well. I just this week installed the Linux version of Teams, and things like keyboard shortcuts appear to be supported. I used which version of Linux did I install? Ubuntu. And it seemed to be pretty straightforward. The other thing that you'll look at is the mobile devices and differences there on iOS and Android. You'll also learn about Microsoft device tags for Teams and settings and firmware for Microsoft Teams physical devices. Teams room accounts are also discussed, and Teams has a number of certified devices that we can look at by searching for Teams certified headsets as an example. And then if I want to get specific about the websites that I'm getting results from, I can add site:/Microsoft.com, and I can go right to the Teams enabled devices. And I have categories on the left of headsets, speakerphones, desk phones, and Teams displays, Teams room systems. So I can go right into Teams rooms and see various systems that have been approved for use by Crestron, Yealink, Logitech, HP. Microsoft has the Surface Hub 2S as part of their offerings. Bose has a certified system now for Teams rooms. So I can see all of the different types. And then I can even see monitors. Dell was first to market with video conferencing monitors for Teams, but Poly has introduced the Studio as part of their offerings for Teams. So I can look for different categories of offerings right there on the Teams website as part of Microsoft.com. Next, you'll take a look at monitoring and analyzing the usage of Microsoft Teams. So you get an opportunity to look at a number of different items. That's 50% of your test right there. The other thing about the Microsoft exams is you need a 700 or a 70% to pass. So you don't have to be perfect or have all-encompassing knowledge of Microsoft Teams. It's a pretty wide plethora of different technologies. But you can see here that I'm already 50% to a 70% if I get everything right, 45 to 50%. And then I'm 30% to 35% if I understand inside and out chat, calling, and meetings in Microsoft Teams. Chat and collaboration is a section that you have within the modules of the MS 700 course. So besides expert technology and your the manual that you're given, hands-on labs, you also have an instructor to guide you through configuring messaging policies, looking at external access to Teams, managing the channels within a team that you create or that was created for you as part of the class, managing private channel creation and some of the concepts there, how email integration works with Microsoft Teams channels, and then external access for SharePoint and OneDrive for Business, which is a decision you can make in those products for online use, and then cloud storage, cloud file storage. From a meetings perspective, you can take a look at all sorts of different meeting settings and policies that you can push down. We also dove deep into live events. Live events can be thought of as similar to what I'm doing right now. I'm on multiple social platforms talking about the preparation for the Microsoft Teams Administrator exam. And a live event is a different type of event from a regular meeting in Teams. Microsoft has just introduced, and we looked at it this week, a webinar feature, which is somewhere in the middle of a regular Teams meeting and a Microsoft Live event. A Microsoft Live event is produced, you have presenters, and then you have an audience that's automatically muted. You have a moderated question and answer opportunity, and attendees to your meeting can actually ask questions, and then a moderated chat can be responded directly to the person that asked the question, or promoted so that everybody can see the questions and the answers within your live event. The webinar feature is new, and we just looked at the fact that the questions for the exam have been written as of, I think it was May 25th. So I would not imagine you will see webinar questions just yet, but you might see those in the future. The next section is managing the phone numbers for Microsoft Teams. And although we don't have physical devices and equipment and phone numbers, we'll look at ordering phone numbers through Teams, talk through the different strategies of integrating with the phone system that you might already have and the public switch telephone network. You'll look at service numbers, things like assigning, changing, and removing phone numbers for your organization, audio and video conference settings, and then E911, emergency, addresses, and policies. Finally, you also have a section on the Microsoft phone system. So you'll look at resource accounts, auto attendance, parking policies, calling policies, as well as the health dashboard for direct routing. Finally, your smallest amount of the questions for this exam come from managing Teams and app policies. And here's our reminder about the date that we're looking at from a standpoint of what was available, what you can do within Microsoft Teams. You look at various ways to create a team, upgrading an existing resource to a team, the most common of which would be a Microsoft 365 group that was created for some use, but does not have a team associated with it. So you can take those Microsoft 365 groups and upgrade or teamify them to put a team around an existing Microsoft 365 group. A good example of this that I share in my classes is in 2014, before Teams was even a product from Microsoft, we formed a Microsoft Midwest Toastmasters Club. And this was a group that met for many, many years up till this past April. And we had a group associated with it for things like a shared calendar, a OneNote, and the ability to send notes or messages, calendar invites to everyone that was part of our Microsoft Midwest Toastmasters. We teamified this and put teams around it in, I believe it was 2019, and then had the ability of teams on top of all the other things and assets that we were leveraging. The next section is managing membership to a team. And probably the key there, if you have not leveraged it before, is configuring dynamic membership of a team. You have an opportunity to look at the all organization team, Putting people into a team and giving them ownership, member, or guest permissions. But a dynamic membership allows you to look for something in the Microsoft 365 group related behind the scenes to the team. And based on a criteria, have people dynamically added to a team and then managed through the dynamic membership, not through the team's add remove members process. So you get an opportunity to see that as well as configure that in the labs for the course. You also have the ability to look at access review for team members. I have the ability to still see my teams that I have access to, but now that I'm no longer a Microsoft employee, others will receive the access reviews for things like the Microsoft Midwest Toastmasters group. Finally, your final section is to think about implementing policies for Teams apps. As part of the course this week, we looked at different things related to Teams apps. And one of the things I discovered was, let's do this in a different window, was Visual SP and a Teams download for a plugin that you can use within Microsoft Teams for training. Let's see if I can find the one that actually has you download and install the solution. This is for Windows, I believe. See if I can find the right link here. So the browser extension, download Team Desktop. Nope, that's the app itself. See if that'll find it for me. When I get the plugin, this is the page that takes you to downloading it from the Microsoft App Source. The page I had found, customize app icons. Here we go. This is the page I found that allows you to download the app package file for Visual SP Online Teams app. And you can actually upload that into the Microsoft Teams solution. The other app that I have used quite a bit in demonstrations is the Tribute app for Teams. And this is part of the Microsoft Tech community. So if you are part of the Microsoft Tech community, Humans of IT, you have access to Tribute, which is a mentoring app. And I can add this into Teams and leverage the solution from within Microsoft Teams. And there are lots of examples of that, both from Microsoft and third parties. So that is your final section, is thinking about app permissions, the setup policies, and even the store customization that you do for Microsoft Teams. This week, we have been receiving an error on the network connectivity side of the Teams network testing companion. And it appears the reason for those failures is because of a DNS issue finding some of the Skype domains, which I'm not sure if those are just down or not working currently, but also 3 specific flight proxy.teams.microsoft.com addresses. And what's happening there from a technical perspective is a failure to respond. So if I do an NS lookup, which is a DNS lookup, I type in the address flight proxy.teams.microsoft.com, I get a response. It's there. I get a DNS address as a response. If I type in ASEA-02 flight proxy.teams.microsoft.com, I get a response with there's nothing there, 0.0.0.0. And I believe that failure for a valid IP address or communication is why the network portion of that report is failing right now. So that's all I can think of there from why I'm getting the network connectivity failure. From a network quality perspective, many of these are fine. So it's looking at and writing the information to me. And I'm getting those reports correctly from the network testing companion. And you install that as part of the course. So in summary, Microsoft has an exam for Microsoft Teams administrators. And that exam is only one part of what the MS 700 course allows you to learn about. The students I had this week learned about live events in more detail, services like Restream and StreamYard that can be connected in to a live event to produce it in a different way with guests and different features. They learned about the new webinar functionality. That is a combination between the traditional meetings you can have with Microsoft Teams and live events for large-scale produced events, either internal to your company, all hands, or external to your customers and others that might have interest. We learned about the different platforms that Teams runs on, and many of the intricacies or the little gotchas and things to know about between Safari support on Mac OS, between the differences of a browser-based version of Teams, a VDI, virtual desktop infrastructure delivery of Microsoft Teams, and the traditional Microsoft Teams application that you're probably familiar with if you're leveraging Microsoft Teams. We looked at things that owners of Teams can do within the Microsoft Teams client and to change the behaviors of what's there by default for the teams and the channels that the owners manage. We looked at what an administrator of Teams can do if the owner or owners are unavailable. We also looked up just today some of the limits from a Microsoft perspective related to Teams. If there were a final suggestion I would give you for preparing for the exam, it would be to take a look at some of the Teams channels, messaging, channel names, guidance, and specifications, limitations today. So if I'm looking at how many teams a user can be a member of, it's 1,000 different teams. If I'm looking at how many owners I can have of a particular team, even if it's a very large team, the tested maximum limit, and from a support perspective, is 100. The number of org-wide teams you can have is 5. And there are some caveats here of what those numbers might mean. And in this, it also includes archived or read-only teams. So in summary, download the preparation and skills measured for this exam. I would recommend you prioritize your learning based on the percentage of questions that you're going to have in a particular area. We looked at those different areas and some suggestions here. And then go ahead and schedule your exam. Scheduling Microsoft exams today happens as an option online. So you don't have to have a test center that you travel to. You can do an online proctored version of the exams. I have done these for a long time. For over 5 years, this has been my preferred method to take Microsoft exams. And the process has changed and gotten easier over that time. Now you set up a space in a room with 4 walls and privacy. You cannot be interrupted while you take the exam. The device that you use gets an application installed to it that leaves your webcam and your microphone on the entire time that you're taking the exam and closes any other applications that might be running on that device. I've taken exams from both Windows devices as well as Mac devices, and they work perfectly fine. You then have an opportunity to take 4 pictures of the room that you are taking the exam in. And the proctor that tests or checks that you don't have any additional technology in that room. Monitors are turned off and spun around, so they can't be turned on when the proctor starts the webcam and the microphone monitoring, that the monitors are turned away from you. They will, if there's anything in those 4 pictures you send of behind your desk, your workstation and chair, and then the 2 sides of the room, they will ask you to correct those before releasing your exam. One other thing that I occasionally forget about, but I usually remember before the proctor reminds me, is to take off my wristwatch. So you can't wear watches. They used to even check my glasses to make sure there weren't things written in my glasses. They haven't done that in quite a while. But the online proctored experience is much quicker and easier than traveling to a test center, taking an exam, and then going home. So I would recommend that experience as well. I appreciate you watching this either live today, Thursday, June, what are we at? The 10th. And if you have interest in signing up for the MS700 class, you can go to directionstraining.com and set up a class experience going through all of what we just talked about. I hope to see you soon. Taught it this week. I'm also teaching it again next week. Have a great Thursday, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to Tech Thursday on YouTube, watching this live on LinkedIn, Twitter, Twitch, Facebook, wherever you might be. Take care, everybody.